Alrighty, we're back with another How to Play Japan video. We're still working on turn 1. This will be part 3, and we are going to cover the setup for the Pearl Harbor strike and operations in the Philippines on this video. So, let's go over to KB. Now, whether you're striking Pearl Harbor or not, that is, of course, your decision, but a lot of new players do that because that's what historically was done, and it's a good loot pinata. So we will assume you're doing that. What if you go to KB, open them up, and you look through your carriers, you'll see what they're set at. Like I go through every carrier, every air group, and change these. The reason I do that is because that's the way I am. So the first thing I always do, I take away the replace. I take away these are for replacement pilots. If you have, put that back to any, it'll pull whatever pilot it wants from whatever reserve pool it wants. It can pull from training command, which you don't want. It can pull from the reserve pool, which is what you want. It can pull from the what's the other one? The replacement, the replacement pool. So it can pull from anything you want. It's random. So you want to go to replacement pool. You want to pull out of the flight school graduates, not the ones you put in training command and not the ones you put into the reserve pool. If you want those, you go to request veteran and pull manually. If you leave it on any, every time you hit this, get 6. It can get 6 pilots from anywhere, probably between multiple pools, and which means your pilot can come out of here with anywhere from 20 experience to 90 experience. You don't want that. In my opinion, you always want your best pilots on your carriers. They are effectively they're your sledgehammer. They're your main aggressive force. They're your main attacker. If you have crap pilots here, your carriers are pointless. I always put the best fighter pilots on the carriers first, and then slowly backfill to ground units. As for Val and like torpedo bomber and dive bombers, I try to put the better ones in here, but usually I go, especially dive bomber pilots, I go through them so quick in carrier attacks against fortified targets. I'm almost never hitting Murchies with carriers or undefended targets. I'm always hitting convoys, usually heavily defending convoys with a lot of AA or other carriers. It seems Val's dive bombers get chewed up in these actions. The torpedo bombers coming in low tend to do better. I'm not sure what the algorithm is or what, but just from my experience, the Vals get crushed all the time. The Kates you lose probably about half. The fighters you lose maybe 10% on an alpha strike against an enemy carrier who is ready for you to attack. I don't know why. I don't know if that's historical numbers or not, but that just seems to be what it is. So you go through dive bombers a lot. So for a fighter pilot, you want 70, 70, 70 for your base skill set. That's 70 experience, 70 air skill, 70 defense. Now, as the war goes on, you're not going to have those. At the war starts, you're not going to have those. So somewhere in the middle of 42, and if you're lucky through 43, you will have that as Japan. All depends on what your losses are, how fast you can get armor for your fighters, because that helps a lot to preserve the pilots, and how many losses. It comes out a pure numbers game. Armor of course helps mitigate some of that. Reduces the killed and increases the wounded, which wounded doesn't really matter. They're just out of the game for a month or weeks, whatever the computer decides, and then they come back. But that's what really matters. So the first thing I always do, okay, so this unit's strafing the airfield. I don't like that at all. I usually turn these guys off. First of all, I fill the unit with pilots. What that does, normally, if you don't, because they only had 18 pilots, 18 aircraft, you're thinking, well, I need one each. Well, yeah, but also what you're going to do, you're going to add three more zeros to this group. These are reserve aircraft. They hang up on the carriers in the hangars. So when you lose a fighter, they pull one down, and you have another fighter. If your pilot survived, well, that's great. He hops in the fighter. Well, what if your pilot was killed? Well, you have 18 aircraft, 17 pilots. You're kind of hosed. There's nothing you can do. You have an aircraft with no one to fly it. So always fill your units up with pilots. They do rotate, so not always the same pilots flying the missions. And that way they all get experience. They all should be leveling up experience-wise at roughly the same rate, which is what you want. You want the entire unit to have a good experience. Like this one here, this group has an average air experience of 75. If you come down here and look at your pilots, several are above, several at 75, and several are below. These are the new guys. Item 2, 3, 4, 5. You can see the ones I added. Now that's fine. They're nowhere near as skilled as the rest of them, but they will. They will get there. They will fly cap missions, which is the best way to level up low experienced pilots for your fighters. Because see, they are not very well trained. They have a low defense, low air skill, low experience. These guys will eventually be killed off, but you need pilots in the beginning of the war. You can't be too picky at the beginning because you don't have a pilot pool, you don't have a training program set up or anything. That's a whole nother video and a whole nother way to look at the game. It's a mini game within the game. And to be honest, both sides have to have a training program to really do well. But we're going off target here, so let's get back. So I usually change these to either escort, maybe a sweep, or I just put them on cap. I don't like my fighters strafing the airfields. Yes, I know on turn 1 with surprise on, the chance of losing 1 or 2 of these, you'll probably lose 1 or 2, but I don't want to lose any. That's just how I am. So I changed that one. Vals. I don't like Vals on port attack. The reason being, the primary targets they're going to go after are the 8 battleships. And I don't know how much experience you have with the game. These Vals carry a 250 kilogram bomb. There it is. Well, against the battleship armor, this is going to bounce off. Almost every battleship at Pearl. You might get lucky. You might penetrate like a gun turret and destroy the gun turret. You might do some surface damage. You'll get some system damage out of it. Possibly even some fire. But this is not a battleship killing weapon by anyone's dream. If these were all 800 kilogram bombs against the older battleships, everything but like the Iowa class, then yes, put them on the port, because these 800 kilogram bombs that's what killed the Arizona. 800 kilogram bomb blew right through its armor, exploded in the magazine, boom, gone. Ship blew in half. But these guys, I like to use these guys. I usually send one. I put it on city attack. Oh, come on. It's not going to... I have to set the target. This is the biggest pain about the turn 1, is that the target's way over here and it keeps bouncing back and forth. So select Pearl Harbor as my target. Yeah, we're out of range. That's expected. And then go city attack. It's still not... Why isn't it doing that? Oh... That's odd. I used to be able to do that. But a lot of the times I'll send one set of Vals after the repair yards. I'm not sure why. It's not a big investment. Just because I do. It's just the way it works sometimes. You can damage the repair yards, but to be honest, it's probably not worth doing it. You want to change that to replacements, add your 9 pilots to the pool. But almost every Val will go after the airfield. You want to kill every aircraft at Pearl as you can. Every fighter is a point. Every PBY is 2 points. B-17s are 4 points. It's a point per engine. You want to massacre the airfields. You can kill 60, 70 PBYs. There's a ton of PBYs there. There's a ton of fighters there. There's probably, 300 aircraft at Pearl. I'm just guessing the number, but there's a ton of them there. And if you set all 6 squadrons, or or Sente of valves to the airfield, you're going to do some good damage. You're going to get a lot of aircraft kills. And then what you do, of course, every Kate in the fleet, fill them up with pilots as well. Every Kate in the fleet is going port attack. These are the ones that are going to kill ships. Now, if you wanted to, you have 6 Sente of valves. You could put like 4 on the airfield, 2 on the port. The only thing is that I wish we had the ability to tell aircraft what targets not to go after or which ones to go after. If you could tell valves not to go after the battleships, or probably heavy cruisers as well, then yeah, send them in, because they will pick on the support ships, the destroyers, the merchants, and they will maul them with their 250 kilogram bomb. But otherwise, heavy cruisers and battleships, the bomb bounces off. But the Kates, on the other hand, totally different story. These guys will either carry a torpedo on the port attack, which we all know Japan torpedoes work. They are very powerful. They are very deadly. Or there's odds for each Sente that launches on a port attack to carry an 800 kilogram bomb. These are even more deadly than torpedoes, because they do a lot of damage and they cause a lot of fire. So both of these, torpedo, 800 kilogram bomb, to be honest, it doesn't matter which you carry, they're all good hits. The reason I like to stick all the valves on the airfield and all the Kates on the port, because then when you're watching the combat replay or looking at the report, and if you see a battleship hit by a bomb, you know it was an 800 kilogram and not a dinky 250. So you can estimate how much damage you've done to your targets. A destroyer hit by 800 kilogram bomb, that sucker's lucky to be alive. A light cruiser hit by 1 is going to be mostly mauled. So you could judge, okay, that ship's out for 6 months and so forth. You could do the after attack assessment and have an idea how long the ships are out. But valves are in the mix. You don't know what type of bomb it was unless you're really watching the combat replay and taking notes. So that's what I like to do. And what it is, the nice thing is here, you can set like this one group to do port attack, Pearl Harbor, adjust whatever altitude you want, and then you can hit this nice button here, set all Kates in this task force to the same. Now what it'll do, it sets everything over here the same. It will not add pilots to the unit, which you may or may not want to do. Go in and manually do that. It will not adjust your air group leaders either, but it'll adjust all the attack stuff to the same. So with one button, when you set the one guy up, you hit this, all Kates in the task force. If your task force is mixed between, like say you have Kates and some Judys, then you want to hit the all torpedo bombers. So there's a button for both. You're all set. Same thing with the fighters or the valves. You set one up, you hit the buttons, and it'll set them all. Another thing you want to do, go through every leader. He has an air 65, that's good. This valve group has a 69, that's good. For an air group leader, only thing that really matters is air. And then for fighter groups, you want high air, high aggression. Other than Navy, land, and admin will help land units get on repairs and maybe get supplies in for new aircraft, but it plays a very minimal role. Naval and land mean nothing to an air group leader. So you want air and aggression for fighters, just air for the others. What I usually do, I save my best air skilled leaders for fighter groups. Those usually have the most aggression as well. And then I put for my land groups, I put minimum of 50 air skill for any air leader that you want to do anything. Now, if you don't have any more 50s, and all you have some 30s and 40s, and if those are backing your training units, that's fine for now. But you eventually want to change them out as well, because that does affect how well they train. So basically, that's what I would do. I set these I would set half the zeros to cap, half the zeros to escort. Not that it really matters, but there is a chance when you hit Pearl that those fighters that are on training missions get pulled up into the fight. There won't be a whole lot of them, but you still want your fighters there to take them out if they do get pulled up. Otherwise, they will get kills. All the valves for me always hit the airfield at Pearl, and all the Kates go after the port. And that's how you set it up. The other thing you could change if you wanted to, you could change where KB arrives. It doesn't matter so much because they can't react to it on turn 1. Whether you arrive here or this hex, it doesn't matter. You don't want to, you don't want to be too far away. You want to be like 2 or 3 hexes away to minimize the op losses on the way back for some damaged aircraft. But that's more of a turn 2 consideration, is you don't want to stay in that hex. You want to move, otherwise all the subs will flood this area, and some aggressive allied people will send out surface task force to try to engage your carriers. It's a losing proposition for the allies in most cases. You can see there are 2 battleships, 2 of the fast battleships with KB, couple 2 heavy cruisers, a light cruiser, then a bunch of destroyers. So the odds of, but still, if they put an 8-inch shell into a carrier, that's going to do a lot of damage. They don't have much armor. Just that's kind of a turn 2 thing. So okay, well, we're done with kind of the Pearl Harbor strike. It's pretty straightforward. You decide how you want to split your air units up. I definitely recommend no strafing of runway. Some people love it, some people don't like it. I'm a fan of the I don't like it. You will lose some fighters on it, and they're just not worth losing. You'll do enough damage if you put all the valves on the airfields as it is. Next part of this video here I want to go over is going to be the attack on the Philippines. The main reason they went after the Philippines, there was a couple actually. One, it was a U.S. base, and 2, it was right in the middle of their lines of communication between, Formosa and Japan, what they want, Malaysia, and the DEI. Basically, they don't want this crap down here. There's nothing here. There's some resources up in Celebes, but really they didn't want this crap. They want Borneo. Borneo has all the oil. So a few little oil down here at Bola and what's it, Belo, but this is what they're talking about here. This is all the oil. This Palembang, and I think there's one down here in Java has some oil too, but that's where most of the oil is. Philippines lies right in the middle. We can't let that be an enemy hands. Plus, there's a huge airfield at Clark. It starts the game at size 8, max size for it. And there's some B-17s, a bunch of, I believe, P-40s here. There's a sizable amount of aircraft, U.S. aircraft in the Philippines, and you want to take them out on turn 1. Otherwise, they could be a real pain to your operations. So, if you're doing kind of a historical start, sending KB after Pearl Harbor, you don't really have any naval air power from carriers to do anything. But Formosa and Pescadores is loaded with aircraft. Well, I guess Pescadores doesn't have much aircraft, but Takeo is. Look at all them. Let's just flip over. First of all, let's look at all the fighters. 1, 2, 3, 4 Centays of fighters. 2 Nates, 2 Zeros. The Zeros are split into 3 groups each. 2 size 9 and 1 size 27. So these are 45 aircraft Centays. You could reattach them if you want. For the first week or 2 of the war, I would not, because that lets you rest one while other ones do stuff. You see, they're 70 experienced. They are highly experienced fighters. They are Navy guys, so that's why. Let's go ahead and back. Let's clear these. Let's look at all the bombers. You got some Sallys, some Anns, some Sonias, some Idas. Lilies have a decent range. But what we're looking at here, you got 2 groups of Nels. One's a detachment. 2 groups of Bettys. Once again, one's a detachment. So you have 54 Bettys here and 36 Nels at Takeo, and they're all primed to hit airfields. You also have, I believe, another set of Bettys here. Yep. You got transports here if you wanted to use them, and we will cover that. So you have a lot of aircraft here on Formosa. to get the job done on turn 1. So what you want to do, you want to go back, load up the game from the Allied point of view, and look and see what's where in Luzon. You don't care about the islands yet because there's nothing there. There's some troops there, but that's it. You don't have to worry about any aircraft and such. But there are several very nice targets here. There's fighters at Iba, I believe. There's a bunch of aircraft at Clark. There's planes all over. So you have to decide which ones you want to hit. You don't want to hit everyone. I mean, the game is set up to hit, multiple airfields, a little bit here, a little bit there, and you're going to damage some aircraft maybe. But you're also maybe having, you go in there, get one, bad dice roll, you get one runway hit and nothing else, and you just wasted 27 bombers. But what you want to do, you want to come in here and you want to work backwards in range. So you don't do the big boys first. Your Idas and Sanyas, they ain't doing shit. So just put them on a training mission because they don't have the range to reach anything. The Lilies and the Sallys can reach. Lilies, I believe, have a base range of, they can go out to range 8. So they can get northern, they can hit targets in northern Luzon, and there are some. I mean, there's worst case, there's troops here you could bomb. Sallys, I believe, go out to 11 or 12. They can hit most of Luzon, and the Bettys and Nels can hit any target you want. They don't really, I don't believe. Let me double check. I think they do all airfields. Yep, that's an airfield strike for the base setup. Airfield. Yeah, see, they're all hitting the airfields. You guys got some Sallys and Anns set up for naval in case anything comes out of either Hong Kong or comes up. That rarely happens. Usually the destroyers from Hong Kong come down here. If they're going anywhere, they come, out of range of here if they're going to do anything with them. But that's usually turn 2. So you want to kind of look at Luzon, look at the aircraft, and you want to concentrate your strikes. Hitting 2 airfields probably isn't a bad choice. Hitting 4 airfields, you're kind of really diluting your strength. Unless, of course, it's an airfield that only the Sallys can hit, and that's really the best target you want them to hit. So that's fine. The Lilies and Sallys have their own targeting, and then all the Netties, the Nels and the Bettys, you want to maybe hit 2 airfields with them, or maybe even just 1, or you could hit a port. You could change them all from airfield to port and try to smack the hell out of Manila Port. There's a lot of ships in Manila Port, including the dreaded subs. But those are choices you need to make. So if you go all in for the port, you're going to leave all the aircraft here, which may prove to be make your invasion of Luzon harder overall. Where killing the subs will help you in the long game. So it's kind of, you got to decide what you want to do. If you wait to turn 2 to hit the subs, they'll be gone. Just letting you know. So if you want to hit Manila Port, you got to do it on turn 1. Otherwise, turn 2, they'll all be fleeing. The aircraft may or may not be here on turn 2, but you'll have to fight them. It's not going to be an easy, go in, bomb them while they're sitting on the airfields. So you got to make some decisions. Then, of course, all the invasion forces for Luzon are at Tikeo or Pescadores. They're on several of them are Magic Task Force, several of them are not. They're the scheduled Bataan Island invasion is here too. I usually change that. There's nothing here in these islands that's worth taking on turn 1 or 2. That can be a cleanup operation after the initial invasion. You also, nice little gem, a lot of people don't realize, you have 2 Marine paratrooper units here at the Kagi. And look, you have 2 transport units. Now the Teresa can't really transport to shit, but the Tinas can go 20 hexes. I love the Tinas. They're expensive to build, but I love them. They have a huge range. And to be honest, if you need more transports, you have some more right here. Topsies have a good range, 14 max. Thalia have a good range too. They have a 15 range max. So you can fly these guys on when you're setting up your turn 1, fly them from Teichu over to Kage. So you can have at least 2 decent transport units to haul these paratroopers somewhere. Now there's a lot of choices for it. If you're playing a default game, you can fly them one of them up into China to capture An Kang. We'll just kind of discuss that more when we go over China operations in a later video. There are a lot of bases in Luzon that are unoccupied. One of the things I like to do is I'll land them at at Vegan and Apari, and then they'll, at the end of the turn, they shock attack. They will capture those bases because there's no one to defend there. But then I don't land any troops on turn 1 in Luzon. The reason I don't is because the troops are not highly prepared for their destinations. And when you land troops, you take a bunch of casualties according to their preparation skill. Especially against, sometimes it's a dice roll. You can lose 100 people, you can lose 1 squad. It's variable. But I like to land my paratroopers, take a couple bases, and then then on turn 2, I unload everything in those bases. And hey, it's friendly. You don't lose a single troop coming ashore. Now, you might get an unloading accident, but you're going to get those no matter what. But you don't get anyone, killed coming ashore because it's a hostile base. But there are other targets here in Luzon that might be worthy of your paratroopers. The entire south from Antimonian down is completely empty. You do have troops coming up from Babel to land at Legespi. So you have troops coming up from the south as well to hit the southern tip of Luzon. Troops come down in the north, but there are a ton of places you can land those paratroopers that may be advantageous to you. You want to look at the situation, see where you want to land them. Remember, the paratroopers have an attack value if you land the entire unit, which is hard, of only 20 something, because they're only they're not fully. Some of them are disabled. At full strength, I believe their value is 31. So, but 31 on a shock attack against an enemy, so they might be able to take out an enemy battalion, but not if they have forts. So they're good for wiping out some base forces, some really small units. You gotta be careful. You drop them into I believe Iba has a Filipino division in it. You drop them there, they're just dead. And the thing is, you drop them onto a dot base, you cannot get them back because there's no airfield here to fly them out of. You drop them into a base, even with the size 1 airfield, transports can fly out of a 1. So you can pull them back and use them again, or fly the transports down there and then use them again. There are some nice targets in Luzon for paratroopers, and there's a lot of ones that aren't really that nice. So if you want to use them, you can look at that. My advice is to use the paratroopers on turn 1, whether it's in Luzon, China, or move them somewhere else to use them, but use them. There's not many turns in the game where you'll be able to use paratroopers effectively. So when you have a chance, use them. Then, of course, you want to make sure you bring all the base forces down and start building these air bases up, which is why I like taking Vegan first. It's a size 2. You can put fighters there. I airdrop that. I take it on turn 1. Turn 2, I have fighters there. Same thing with Apari as a size 1. You could do fighters there for cap only. So you take that, you come in, you land, you apply auto flip Leong, and then you start marching south. That's pretty much Luzon. The big thing with Luzon is you need to decide ahead of time how much effort you're putting onto the island. You want to do enough that you can take the island and kind of push the allies back to Bataan or Clark or Manila, wherever they're going to hold up. If they want to hold up in Manila, that's nice because you come down, take Clark, and then they're split. Most of them have been abandoning Manila, going up to Clark. Then you have to fight them at Clark and then fight them back at Bataan. Unless you put a lot of your free divisions into the Philippines early, you will not take the Philippines in any record time. I believe historically it fell in April 42, so 5 months. Don't be surprised if you're, come March, April, you are still fighting in Luzon. It all depends on how much forces you commit. Because if you don't commit heavy here, you're going to commit heavy in Malaysia. It's one of the two. I mean, I guess you can go heavy somewhere else, but you need the Philippines, you need Malaysia, you don't need the super South Pacific. You don't need you don't need all these bases down here. You don't need to hit you don't need to take Australia. You don't need New Caledonia or New Hebrides or Fiji. Yeah, there's regions to take them, but you don't need them. And they're so far away. You're better off making that a target in 42. You're better off picking Malaya or Philippines, and that's your main target for early 42 and 41. You want to hit them and hit them hard. And I usually go Malaya myself. I think it's more important than Luzon. Once the aircraft are out of the Philippines, there's really not much there. Yeah, there's some resources and some of the islands down here and that, but you can take your time, starve them out, and then take them. Malaya is much more important because it controls the Straits of Malacca. Singapore does. If you want to do anything in Burma of any real note, you need Singapore. Once Singapore falls, Burma's wide open, as well as Sumatra and Java. But Singapore has to fall for that to happen. But that's we'll cover Malaya in another video. So that's kind of what the first turn one for your carrier should be, how to set them up, and some ideas of what you want to do over here in the Philippines. But while you're doing turn one, you need to decide Malaysia or Philippines, which one's more important to you and whatever goals you are looking at. But that's this video. I'll be back with some more of turn one how-to videos. If you do like this video, please go ahead and give me a like. If you're liking this little mini series I'm doing, please go ahead and subscribe. And until the next video, you guys have a great day.